Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Joy Grace. Today I wanted to do a get ready with me using a new to me palette, but one that's been around a couple years. Today I used the Colourpop That's Taupe palette, and it's a really pretty cooler toned eyeshadow palette. And it's one that probably a lot of you guys already have in your collection. So if you do, hope you feel inspired to pull it out and play with it again. Maybe you follow along as you get ready and do this eye look with me. Alright, so the first product I'm going to use today is a new to me product. I think this was getting popular from TikTok fame, but this is the Dr. Jart Cicapair Tigergrass Color Correcting Treatment, and it has an SPF 30 sunscreen. Looks like this. It's kind of a green consistency and it is rather thick, but it's supposed to cancel out redness, so I thought it would be good to use today. It is on the thicker side, so just keep that in mind. I've started a new trickling in like new skincare products, and as you can see, it's helping a lot with my acne, but I do have a bunch of post-acne scarring that is unsightly, so I'm hoping this will help cover. It seems to be helping. I think if you have better skin than me, some people use this alone just to kind of cancel out the redness. But in my opinion, it's not enough to, if you have like true acne scarring like I do. You can see just how thick it is. I've only used this a few times, but I don't know if it causes breakouts or not. I try not to use it back to back just because it is so heavy and thick. I like more of my thinner sunscreens, and it's almost like because it is so thick you don't want to use so much, but because you are using it for the sunscreen, you know, you need to use an ample amount, so that's kind of, have to remind myself of that. But as you can see, it does kind of help cover some of that redness. Let me make sure to get some on the eyelids. It does have a nice like moisturizing effect. It doesn't dry down immediately. Alright, so I like to do foundation first. For foundation, I'm going to use, I recently got a new bottle of, this is a Korean brand. It's called the Saem, and this is their Studio Glow foundation in the shade 21, and this actually also has a bit of SPF in it as well, SPF 35 PA++. I'm just gonna pump a little bit of this. This, as the name suggests, has a glowy finish to it, so if I'm wearing it for long hours, I make sure to powder it. But I like wearing it on the weekends because it provides a decent amount of coverage that is buildable. But, and then in that case, I don't powder it if I'm not wearing it like a full 9 hours. This works really well with a stippling brush. Normally I use this Sephora Pro Stippling number 44 brush. And it works really well with that, but this week I've just been using the Beauty Blender a lot, and it's kind of nice. So now I'm just going in with like a second layer just to really try and even out my cheeks. Alright, so now that I'm done blending that in, I'm going to let that set a little bit before I go in with bronzer, just because the sunscreen and that foundation, it is a little tacky, so I just want to give it a minute to set before I go in with bronzer or blush or anything that might grab at it. So while that sets, I'm going to do my eyes. I know this palette is not new whatsoever. This is the Colourpop That's Taupe Pressed Powder palette. This has been out a couple years. Colourpop sells it, Ulta does as well. The price is now $14, but because Colourpop is considered a drugstore brand at Ulta, you can get it 20% off, so I paid like $11 and change. This is a really pretty, cooler toned, maybe even neutral tones here. And again, it's been out a couple years and it's always kind of grabbed my eye. I do have the Natasha Denona Glam palette, which it has been said that that taupe palette, mine is getting really squeaky. I need to do something about that. But it said that the Colourpop That's Taupe and the Natasha Denona are kind of dupes. They are very similar shades. But I was thinking some of the matte shades aren't exactly the same. And the reason I wanted to pick this up is, I mean, people might be gravitated to these metallics and they are really pretty. But for me, it was this shade up here called Boa. It's the lightest matte in the shade. It looks kind of like a skin tone, but slightly deeper than my skin tone. I wanted to try that in the crease. The palette I have the Urban Decay Naked 1 palette. And this palette has been a favorite, but you know, it's been discontinued for years now. This palette is extremely old. I probably still shouldn't be using it. But this shade right here, Naked, is a really, really light toned matte. And it has always been the perfect crease shade, especially if I don't want to wear, like if I want a very natural, no makeup look. This is the matte I would use in my crease, and it always looked so pretty. And I have really struggled to find a dupe for this shade because it is so light and it's also so neutral. It's not cool toned, it's not warm toned on my skin tone. It's truly perfection. And unfortunately, that's not one of the shades that Urban Decay sells as a single either. So I've always been on the hunt for that for years, and I'm wondering if this Boa shade, I don't think it'll be exact, but I wonder if it will be close. So I'm going to go in with that in my crease, and we will see if it even shows up. I really hope it does, because that Naked shade is so pretty. Okay, so you can see, hopefully you can see this. It's very close to my skin tone, but it's just a subtle bit darker to where it provides like a contour of the eye socket. Let me see if this can be built up to a darker. Yeah, you see how flawless that is? It's so easy to blend. And it's really complementary to the blue eyes, my blue eyes. I feel like this one is ever so slightly more cool toned. So, I mean, it's not exact like the Naked, but it's pretty close. It's just light enough, but yet still just dark enough to where it still shows up on the skin, or lighter skin tones such as mine. Okay, so I like shades like that, like I said, just for easy out the door if I just want to run to the grocery store and look put together. But today I'm actually going to do an actual eye look for you guys. So let's see. I really like this shade called Snake Eyes. I think that's really pretty. And the shade Python, basically these diagonal shades. So Python, Snake Eyes, and Rock Steady. I don't want to go as deep as like these two shades, but I'm thinking just kind of deepen it up with this Python shade. Put this on the lid and maybe this in the outer corner. This is the most gray toned shade, and then this is like a transparent. This is the Super Shock Shadow. This is like a transparent topper, glittery topper. So I'm going to take a bit of that Python shade in the crease now. There is a bit of kick up in the pan when you go in. So, you know, I don't like swirl the brush in the powder. It's not needed. These powders are really soft. So, you know, just go in lightly, and then when it kicks up, just use that when you go in for the second time. This is the Refer number 14 brush. It's a really small crease brush. I've not used it much. This is probably one of the least used Refer brushes that I have. But I'm trying to use, because basically I use like the same 3 shapes of brushes from Refer, and then Wayne Goss has the equivalent of those. I basically use those constantly. But some of these more unique sizes and shapes from the Refer line I don't use as much, so I'm trying to get more use out of them. This seems to be doing a good job of placing down that deeper crease shade. I feel like this look is starting to turn purple, which it's really, that's the hard thing, right? Like all these palettes, some people might say, oh, they're boring and they're just neutral, they're all the same, but they're really not. Like, it's really difficult to find a truly neutral toned eyeshadow palette, and that's what I'm finding and on the Never Ending Hunt for. That's why the Naked palette for me and my skin tone and my undertones is so perfect, because it's not warm, it's not cool. It is truly a neutral tone that looks so good. It's easy for, or I find that really, when I find things that look neutral, they either turn out on my skin tone warmer or cooler, and they tend to turn like this grayish purple color, which is pretty, but most of the time I'm wanting those more neutral tones that can go with, you know, for instance, today I'm wearing gray because I had a suspicion that this would turn, you know, this purpley gray color on the eye. But, you know, with the neutral tones, it's easy. You don't have to think about what shirt you're wearing, what color you're wearing, because it's going to go with it, whether it is a warmer tone or a cooler tone. Okay, so I think that looks pretty. Now I am going to take Snake Eyes on, let's see, I think I'm going to take this brush. This is the Refer number 28 brush. It's just a flat shader brush. And go in with that over the first half of the lid. If you have this palette, let me know how you like it, because again, this is the first time I'm using it. Let me know like your favorite shade combinations to pair together, how it wears on you, if you find that it ends up always turning this grayish purpley color on you. I'm curious about this Pebble Beach shade, because that does look more neutral. So yeah, I need to try that later. This Cold-Blooded shade is like, it looks straight up silver. Okay, so that shade looks pretty good all over the lid, but again, yeah, I mean, it's looking purple. So, not how I wanted the look to go, but oh well, it's still pretty. So next I'm going to take, it's probably going to amplify this even more. Maybe I do go in because I know this Rock Steady shade is straight up like grayish brown taupe. So that'll just amplify this color tone even more. What if I try using this Bedrock shade? This is kind of a deeper, I like when they include these deep dark shades. I feel like Colourpop does that really well in their palettes, because I like using, as I've said in many of my other videos, I like using these smaller detailed liner brushes. Wayne Goss makes one, the 08, Reffer has one as well, but they're super fine and thin, and they allow you to use any of these deeper shades as liners. So I really like that. I think like all of the Colourpop palettes that I have this deeper dark brown, sometimes almost black shades that look really good on the upper lash line. This is just a Japanesque 724 brush. It's like a fluffier version of the Wayne Goss 06. This one's a little bit dirty, so I didn't want to use it. But it's kind of where it's kind of pinched, but it's tapered, and then it's fluffy. So it's really good for like packing the shade on the outer corner and then blending it up into the crease. This this Japanesque one is just a little bit more fluffy. Maybe a little bit more dense too. And I'm just tapping ever so lightly because I know that shade is pretty dark. Okay, I'm gonna go back in just a little bit because I feel like the shine of that Snake Eyes shade kind of wore off. So I'm just gonna kind of put that more towards the center of the eyelid. Yeah, I'm curious to know if you have this palette, how it wears. Because I find that I have the Going Coconuts palette also from Colourpop, and I've never really found the Colourpop shades to wear that well on me. Like, I feel like they always crease by the end of the day, whereas Natasha Denona never creases on me. I don't really like to wear eyeshadow primers, you know, like I'll put concealer on, but I never even set the concealer either. So maybe that's my problem, but I never have an issue with creasing with Natasha Denona shades, and I always had that with the Going Coconuts palette. So let me know if it creases on you. I will say, because I'm on the hunt for this really kind of skin tone, slightly deeper skin tone color, I ran across the Colourpop Deja Brew palette at Target, and I picked this up, also $14. It's a little bit different. This is cardboard packaging. This is plastic packaging with the see-through clear lid. I can get it open. I love this. I need to do it. I used this yesterday for the first time and absolutely loved it. Now these are truly neutral shades, not warm tone, not cool tone. They honestly looked so pretty. And this shade, Good Habit, I know it's darker than the Naked shade that I showed you from the Naked palette, but it has that same effect to where it just slightly contours what you need. And then I used this Cup of You shade all over the lid, and then I don't remember what I used in the outer corner, probably this Pick Me Up, and used the double shot on the lash line. That was really pretty. If you want to see a video with this palette, let me know and I will certainly do it. I couldn't find a lot of swatches or even videos on this palette when I was contemplating picking it up, and because it was so cheap and you know, at my local Target, I just picked it up. So I'm really liking that one. And I mean, I need to use this one a few more times and use that one a few more times, but I'm thinking that Deja Brew one is personally for me my favorite out of the, compared to the That's Taupe. So let's see how, I feel like this eye look looks good, decent. It's not my favorite. Again, I'm getting in that rut of just gravitating towards very simple neutral eye looks, and this is more cooler purple. So I'm going to take, like I said, this Bedrock shade on the upper lash line. and just stamp that in. It's super easy because this brush is so thin. It gives you a thin lash line as well. And it's easy, like if you did want to like smoke it out, like, you know, blend out the edges upward, it's easy to do that. I didn't point out, but this palette does not have a mirror. Whereas if you're used to the Going Coconuts palette, you know, that one does have a mirror. I will say this palette doesn't have an inner corner shade. This slated shade is, like I said, it's like a glittery topper shade. And I don't like to put glitters. I really don't like to wear glitters at all, but especially on the inner corner because they're guaranteed to get in your eye and just bother it all day. So I'll probably dip into something else for that inner corner. Maybe the Naked palette, actually. Okay, so before I finish putting one of the matte shades on my lower lash line, I do need to conceal. So let me go in with, I'm trying to use this up. I've had this for at least, I think 2 years. I'm going on 2 years with this, so it needs to be used up ASAP. This is, I got this from YesStyle. It's the Unny Club. UNNY is how you spell the brand. Full cover tip concealer, and this is in the shade 1. It's pretty light, but it does have decent coverage. Sometimes I pair it with the Becca. I have backups of this Becca, the Salmon Under Eye Corrector. But today I'll just go in with the concealer itself and blend that out. And use my Tarte Rainforest. I think this is from their Rainforest. It's their teal concealer brush. Does anybody else, like when I start applying concealer, it doesn't matter like what it is, and I'm not like mashing on my inner rim, but the inner rim lower lash line just becomes so red and pink. Like my eyes look terrible. I feel like when I watch other YouTubers, I don't notice that at all. And I've been looking for it lately because it's been bothering me so much on mine. So, you know, putting a nude color, even I've been using, my favorite is actually this Wet n Wild Ultimate Brow Highlighter. It's just a stick. I probably need to buy a new one. Like, that's the thing. It's such a chubby stick. And you're using it in your waterline. It's like, probably need to replace this more often than I do. But it's really good at concealing that redness. I just don't know why it gets so red. To the point where it's like, I have to use something. So you can see that just brightens it. But I have to make sure too to get an even application, because sometimes it's like pink and then bright red, you know. So I think, I mean, these purple shades are pretty. For me, I have dark under eyes, and I just feel like it almost accentuates the darkness under my eyes. Like, this concealer does a good job at concealing, but, and maybe I'm being too hard, but I don't know. I just have that tendency and worry to, you know, that it's bringing out the darkness under my eyes. I always thought like these kind of mauve-y shades looked pretty with blue eyes. And then I was watching a video the other day of, it was Andrea Ali. Let me close this, it's so loud. It was Andrea Ali, and she was talking about colors, you know, which colors to wear to best suit your eye color. and she was saying purple, do not, I mean, you know, it was very much a video, like, do what you want, but it was saying that she did not like to use purple with blue eyes because it was too much color. I think was her wording, something along those lines, which I thought was surprising because, like, when I've seen other videos, you know, like the get ready with me's that the celebrities do. I remember one of them was a model and she has blue eyes. I can't remember her name, but it specifically said that she likes to use a mauve matte shade in her crease to bring out the blue. So I don't know, if you have blue eyes, let me know what shades you like to wear, what colors, what undertones to accentuate your eye color. Alright, so I think for the inner corner, I'm going to use this Virgin shade from the Naked palette and just apply that in the inner corner. This is kind of more of a matte shade. Like, I wouldn't even call it satin, really. It's between a satin and a matte, in my opinion. But I've been trying to use it this week. I really hope that they re-release this palette, because this is, I mean, perfection. In terms of shade selection, undertones, it's truly perfect. I was recently looking at the Naked 3 palette, and I keep waffling on that. I'll look at it, I'm like, yeah, I really want that. And you know, they had it half off. They put it half off for, you know, the holidays, and I feel like every holiday they have it half off, and it's been out a while. I was watching old YouTube videos of tutorials, and yeah, I just feel like it would be a lot of this that I'm talking about, like this purpley gray. So I keep talking myself out of it, and I'll probably circle back to it before the end of the year and really want it again and have to talk myself out of it again. But I think what I'm after and chasing is a new version of this. Like a re-release, so that I can get fresh shades and not worry about giving myself an eye infection. But I will say it works fine. I've not had any issues so far. So I've got some sleepy dust in my eye. Let me get that out. Okay. Alright, so now the face has dried a bit, so let's go in with bronzer, blush, highlight, and then I will finish with my brows. I'm going to use another product. So if you don't know by now, I really think about my purchases before I pull the trigger. So a lot of this stuff that is new to me has been out for years before I finally decide to buy it. So it's, you know, same thing with this Colourpop. I just got it, and then I got this Jouer light to medium bronzer duo. It's got Sunlight, the shade Sunlight and Suntan in it. Two slightly different shades, but this has also been out for years, been talked about a lot, and, you know, kind of went away in popularity, but they still sell it, and I just love it. Again, I just decided to buy it at the end of last year during one of the Sephora sales, and I'm loving it. So I think most of my makeup purchases happen years after the product has been released. So maybe it's a good thing, but probably nobody's looking for reviews on this stuff anymore. Sometimes when I watch declutters, like, some of the people already declutter it before I decide to buy it. But I'm really into these lighter tones that are really close to my skin tone, kind of the no makeup look like I was talking about, where it's just easy, effortless, glowy makeup that really accentuates your natural beauty. And I like this bronzer because it is so light, but you can see, I mean, it's giving bronze. I feel like one area of makeup that I'm trying to get better at is blending, especially around the edges. Like, I feel like I'm kind of self-conscious when I go to work or anywhere, you know, in public, and I'm wearing my hair up in a ponytail. Because then you've got not only your neck exposed, but also like back here exposed. And so really trying to make sure I blend back there, but it's hard because you can't see it. So if you got any tips on that, or if you just go to town blending, I guess that's what people do. But and really, if you have this duo, let me know how you use it. I need to look up like if there's a specific way to use it. I don't think any one of these is a contour shade. Like, they both look like really light bronzers to me, so I kind of just mix the two like this and then go in. And the brush I'm using is this rougher number 5 brush. It's really, really good. And I like to kind of bring it up, the bronzer up like this. And try to blend it as good as I can up into the hairline too. Because also when you wear your hair up, I feel like there's inevitably going to be, you don't want your makeup to look like a mask, I guess. But, you know, it's hard because when you do that, then you've got your scalp exposed and you're never going to wear makeup in your scalp. So, I don't know. I guess just do the best you can. Don't worry about it too much, right? Okay, so for blush, I am going to use this cream blush by Dalton. It's the Doll Skin Genius Multitasker 3-in-1 cream color stick. Looks like this. It's just a chubby blush stick. It does roll up and roll down. It's a really pretty cool toned blush, so I thought it would go good with this color. And the other thing I like about it is that you can wear it on the lips, so it's 3-in-1. The third use for it would be like in your eyes, on your eyes. So I'm actually going to put it on the lips. It's really pretty, but it is very pink. It goes good with this. It's like a matte formula, but it's kind of velvety too. It reminds me a lot like a stick version of their velvet. What do they call that? Their velvet. It's like their velvet lipstick. It comes in a tube. I've talked about it a lot. I'm blanking on the name of it, but the shade So Shy, it's my favorite. This shade reminds me of that, and the formula as well. It's like just a kind of a cushiony, velvety formula. So now I'm going to take just a random blush brush that I have. This is from Wet n Wild. And just take a little bit like this. And just start dotting that, stamping it on the cheek. And see, it's got some good pigmentation. And this is in the shade Boss Babe. I did not say the shade name. I think they've come out with more shades now, but this is the only one I have. Really the only one I want. Okay, and now just to kind of blend it and tone down. So that color, as you can see it, I mean, you can build it up to get pretty bright. Just go back in with the Beauty Blender to soften the edges. So it does wear really well throughout the day too. So for highlight, I am using another old favorite. This is the Laura Mercier and the Matte Radiance Baked Powder in 01. It's a really soft, pretty, subtle highlight. And to do that, just using this old Sephora highlight brush. I keep hearing that everybody wants the brands, makeup brands, to come out with highlights this year. More highlights. Highlight everywhere. But for me, I'm kind of coming away from highlights. Really, like, these softer ones are the only ones I really use anymore. Like, I hesitate to grab for my more blinding highlights, such as the Mary Luminizer from the Balm. So, I think it's just a personal preference thing. Like, I find that we're using more cream products and more glowy, dewy foundations, skin tints, etc. So, highlights aren't really needed a lot of the time, I find. Like, you've got a lot of that glow going on already. When I do the C shapes, I like to kind of blend it up kind of into the brow, but mainly I'm trying to target this brow bone. Just because I'm not one to actually place an eyeshadow on the brow bone. I just can't ever get it to look natural. So I feel like using this natural highlight there highlights it without highlighting it, if that makes sense. This eyeshadow is kind of growing on me a little bit. So last step is brows. I'm going to use, if you don't have this brow brush, if you use brow pomades, or I guess even powders, I don't use powders, but if you use pomades at least, I'm going to use this old Benefit Kabrow. If you use those types of brow products, get you this Anastasia 7B brow brush. It might look like every other brow brush that's ever been created, but I'm telling you, this side of it is so thin, it's the thinnest one I've ever come across. For instance, I've got one from Dalton. I think it came with their brow product, but just comparing, if I can do this, hopefully you could see this. You can see most brow brushes are like the Dalton one, which is kind of thin, but certainly not hair-like thin like the Anastasia is. Hopefully that you can see that. Especially if you kind of get product on it and then like really pinch it together, it really looks, I think, as natural as a brow pomade can. This is the mini size, and even the mini, it takes forever to use because you need so little. This is the brow I always needs the most help. Put it that way, because I have a scar in the brow. And I'm curious to try the brow pens that everybody are talking about now. Like, I feel like the people that I see using that, it looks phenomenal, but they've also got really great brows to begin with, like those thicker, fluffy, bushy brows. And I love what the brow pen does for them, but I'm just scared that having sparser brows, like the top of this, the scar, because sometimes that scar tissue products don't go that well. Like, I've got some, I don't know, I've got some brow products that I really have to pile on or either use like a brow pomade to try to cover that scar. But what I'm saying is that the brow pen, like, you'd have to have really good skills, I feel like, to make that look good. Like, they've all got bushy brows, so they've got a good, like, it's easier to hide those pen strokes, I feel like. Whereas, like, this side isn't so bad, so maybe the pen would look good. But anyways, if you have the brow pen and have jumped on that trend, let me know which product you use, if you like it, any tips, any of that kind of stuff. Alright, so I just finished applying mascara. I used the Saie Mascara today. I had a deluxe sample of it from one of the Sephora Favorites kit that I'm trying to use up. So I used that on the lashes. But overall, I gotta say, I do love the eyeshadow color paired with this lipstick. And I used the blush stick for that. So just a really simple, soft, feminine, really pretty, easy eye look. So I hope you enjoyed watching today's video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing before you go, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.